Hi, everybody, and welcome to the podcast Beyond. My name is Tammy Zagarelli, and this is my wonderful brother, Mark Zagarelli. Say hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
There you go.
Sorry, I had to do it.
Um, Good. So,
How are you today?
we're doing very well, doing very well. So, where
Good.
would you like to begin? I can always start things out, but where would you like to begin today?
Sure. Yeah, what I've been thinking about is in the last several podcasts. By the way, before I do anything else, shout out to Stevie Nicks. It's her birthday today, and
Oh, we love
we love
Stevie.
Stevie. You have to love Stevie, right? So, you don't have to, but it's recommended.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
I think
highly
she's
recommend
great.
it.
You're right. She's awesome. I'm not going to say her age because, it's available and, I'm just respectful and all, but,
And
um,
also, we're dating ourselves, but
right, we don't want
you
to
know,
date ourselves too much. But I mean, like for whatever age she is, she's fabulous and amazing. So go
fabulous at any
Stevie.
age.
Thank you for leading the way for those of us heading into those years. Um,
Yes, for
yeah.
sure.
Okay, having said that, great. Um, so what we've talked a lot about inner guidance, and obviously we will continue to do that. That's going to
Yeah,
be a major focus of this podcast. But,
sure.
or and rather, and I'm thinking of sort of North Star sorts of ways of thinking. You could also think
Yeah.
of little life rafts that get you out of a crisis when your boat goes down, someplace to land, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of today, at least as a starter. And so,
I
how does
love
that
it.
sound to you?
Well, it's a great question. First of all, we're trying to create new language on this podcast. Language, I wrote down a list of, you know, some of the worst sayings from the 20th century. Most people are joining us are probably who are probably born in the 21st century. But we, the way that we move through life is by putting language, creating stories and putting language to the things uh, that we lean on in life. If you were like, I'm going to say a bad saying, what I believe is a bad saying. Again, Tammy 101.
Sure.
When you're in the gym and someone is saying, and your trainer is saying, this is an old saying, no pain, no gain, as you're ripping and as you did, right?
As
Ripped
I
a,
did, I have to say, no pain, no gain got me a 90% tear in my in one of the tendons in my shoulder. So
there
just
you go.
saying, pain, no gain, right?
Right,
Okay,
right.
right.
But these things, we fall back on language all the time without knowing it. So to create language that gives us, we don't need catchy phrases when life is going great, roll with that. You don't want to be dissecting happiness unless you're unhappy and you're trying to figure out how to get back to happiness. Again, a lot of what we're doing on this podcast, two coaches, education coach, life coach, business coaches, both of us, from unhappiness to happiness. What do we land on? And you're saying it like a life raft. So if you're going down for the third
Right.
time,
What do you think, that's going to be like, like I'm going down for the third time. I want to reach my hand up and grab something that will pull me back up to the waterline, right?
right? And things that I notice with my clients um, and myself, a saying that is absolutely the fundamental of Tammy's life coaching is the number one principle. You can't lose anything that's yours, and you can't have anything that's not. Which means, in short, let's use it in a very simple situation. Someone comes to me and says, "My boyfriend, I'm losing my boyfriend. I'm like, I can see that he's pulling away. I'm losing a girlfriend. I'm just not feeling like we're clicking." And like how do I hang on to him? How do I hang on to him? It's like, ooh, bring it down.
Breathe,
You
breathe.
breathe. If he's yours, if she's yours, if they're yours, you, you know, you can't lose anything that's yours and you can't have anything that's not. So you get to pick the destination that you want in life. I want to be, I'm meaning my client, the whoever I am, I want to be in a committed relationship. Maybe that's what you want. I am looking to get married. I am looking to have harmony in this job. I am looking for, you get to have, I mean, I want to be in, I love what one of the things that Carrie said on Sex and the City was, I want inconvenient, you know, love. I want love that just like we put each other first, like, whatever you want.
Sure.
That may not be what I want. I want, maybe I want independence. I want more free time. I want whatever you want. You get to get what you want. You just don't get to pick
How it looks,
exactly the way you get
who
it.
it is. Right. Yeah.
Right. Because
Right.
then it's like,
Right.
you can get into the point where the person themselves is more important than what you're actually allowing into your life. That specific person has choices too.
Right. And you could, like, as another example, you could say, like, I want to live in a beautiful place. And you might have in your head, I want to live in Hawaii. But like what's destined for you is it could be Florence, it could be Buenos Aires, it could be, South Africa. It could be a beautiful place that you've never been before, but there it is waiting for you. And as long if you, if you're attached to Hawaii, it's like it can't be anything but Hawaii. Hawaii may not be yours, but
Right. You may
other
want to
places,
place someplace tropical,
right?
and that's fair. Like, but there
It could
are
be Iceland. Maybe it's like you wake up and it's this beautiful, amazing, like ice skate with snow 10 months a year, but it's amazing and beautiful, and you didn't realize how wonderful it would be.
right. Sometimes the universe is offering you things that are better than what you're requesting. So I always tell people to use a phrase, I want this or something better.
That's
The
good.
open door to the universe. I I want a romantic relationship. I hope it's with this person, but this or something better. The idea of hanging on to the essence of what you want without without putting a demand on some specific person, place, or thing to fulfill that in a way that is not necessarily as good for you as what could come through the doorway.
That's right.
So when people are, especially, the age group of people that are like dating sort of in the beginning, this takes time to incorporate and to get good at, to get good at letting go of something you think it's it, dig underneath, and the essence is it. You want, you know, fun is the most important thing in your life. You as a 7 on the Enneagram, look up the Enneagram, guys. Um, where someone else might want security as the most
Right.
important thing. Those concepts are available to anyone. Somebody who is, really wants to spend time, a lot of time with somebody, two people that want to spend a lot of time together. You may not be in that exact situation with someone, but this is a very important concept. You can't lose anything that's yours, and you can't have anything that's not. So if someone or something is not it, and you're trying to make that specific thing it, is when we get into, if it's not him, I can't go on. It's like,
Right.
yes, you can go on.
Right. And flip side, I think what's really important because like on the like you can't make anybody be the person you want them to be in your life. The universe may have other plans. Hey, they may have other plans. But the flip side of that too is surprisingly, it is really hard to get rid of people who mean to be in your life in the best possible sense. I
Absolutely.
don't mean people who are clinging or people who are needy or people, but I mean just like look around your life. Like you may have like I mean I'll like shout out to my friend Khan, okay? Because when he watches this, I want to say
Oh,
like he's
lo-
like okay, like
we love him.
Khan, my friend Khan moved into the house that my house. I want to say it's going on like 8, 9 years, which is crazy because it's like it's a bit, like you just turn around and suddenly a lot of years have passed. But it's like he moved in and at the time, I just thought like, really good guy. He'll pay the rent. He'll be a good person who live, like all the things you think of in terms of like, can I live with this person? Will this person be a good person to
And
pay the rent?
explain to people that you have a house that you
I have a
you
house
travel
where I,
90%
right,
of
I
the
travel,
time.
but like at the time I wasn't. And of course, obviously during COVID, nobody traveled. But yeah, like I have people who live in the house who, A, we share orders. So I want them to be like nice people. And B, like I'd like them to pay the rent relatively on time, like within a click of on time, right? So, and, but what I didn't know at the time would be that he would be someone who would ascend to the position of a really good friend, a truly trusted friend.
Yeah, one of your best friends.
Right. Yeah.
You
Like
didn't
someone who
know
like
that.
when I'm home, I see every day, what like, can tell, I can tell them everything. I could, like I'm having a good day. I'm having a bad day. I need your advice. I need your
You
help.
can't lose the people in your life that are in on a spiritual level. You're not, you can even have, you can fight with them. You half the time you're fighting for each other, not against each other.
Right.
That's the irony of the people, when you look around it, there's, when I ask each client, who is the unshakable person in your life? Like you can't shake them off no matter in the
In the
best
best
possible
possible
sense.
sense, right? Exactly. Like
Right. Like you have a
not
parent
not
who's
the whiny friend who clings to you and desperately needs your help and you can't get rid of. Not that. But that person who just you turn around and go like, "Wow, we've been friends for 15 years and how did that happen? When did that happen?"
and they to go and look and say, I tend to say it with a lot of times it's generally a specific parent. Parents have different roles in people's lives, but in someone's life when they're like, this guy isn't they're not paying attention to me, and I'm like, and I'm afraid I'm going to lose him. I say maybe they're really close to their father or their mother, and I say, so are you, when you're upset about things and you're calling your mother again for the fourth time today, crying to her about this problem, do you ever feel like you're going to lose her? And they're like, well, no, of course not. And I say, but the same behavior, like maybe your boyfriend, and I'm using boyfriend just because, for what reason, is saying, you're too emotional, you're too. I said, do those look around the through line of everybody that is unshakably loving to you, and do they love you? Do they need you to change for you to, obviously we're
Right.
all growing and
Do
that's not
they
what we're
do
talking about.
they tolerate those aspects of yourself that other people cherish or accept or honor, whatever it is like, the
Right.
difference, the difference between someone who's like, like, oh, you just talk all the time and I just, it's just something, I'm a big person and I just put up with it, versus someone who's like, what do you mean you talk all
Right.
the time? We have a good conversation. I enjoy our conversations. Someone who that's completely transparent to. You might want to lean into the friend who's like, who you are is great, versus the friend who's like, if you change these five things, maybe I'll like you better.
Right. And the thing is that the parts of us that sometimes we are working on, and we are all, part of the idea of working on yourself is sort of another thing I say to people is sort of the baseline to admission to my life. And that's not to say that for many years in my life, I wasn't working on myself. What does that mean? It's becoming self aware, to become self reflective, so sometimes we could say, well, this is something I'm working on. So, my boyfriend really thinks I should work on that. It's like, mm-hmm. So working on yourself is an inside job, and people can support your growth. But when
Right.
you have someone sitting there saying, so you said you wanted to work on being so emotional, and like, you're so emotional, where working on these things is very private, very personal. We've shared it. And our parents may say to us, or someone that a great coach, a great therapist, a great friend might say, have you ever thought about the fact that you're emotional is because you're so intuitive? And we're
Have you
someone
ever
who's not.
thought of the idea that you're, for example, occasionally loud in a restaurant because you're so passionate, right? Like
There you go.
I have a friend who, Italian family and, loud.
Talk with our hands.
We're talking with our hand, right? Exactly. But like, no, I got a buddy who, Christian. I like to make, shout out to all these people who I adore, and when they see it on, like, no, well, my friend, Christian, who is from, I'm from New Jersey. He's from California. That says just about everything you need to say about our personalities, because he's much just a little bit more like, yeah, man, quiet, just like. And when I get a little over the top in a restaurant, he'll be like, hey, man, I'm right here. But always in a nice way, like never in a like, oh my God, you're embarrassing me so much. Just more like, I'm bringing you back in to the place
Right.
where
And notice the difference, because this is a phrase I want people to understand. People who are fighting with you or people who are fighting for you,
yes,
because there's a difference. And it's in the tone of somebody saying something. Like, dude, like underneath that, when someone is fighting for you, it's
I'm
like,
on your side.
I'm on your side. We're on the same side of the table. Like this is, you've sort of said to me, bring me, reel me in a little bit when I'm like this.
Yeah.
And they're like kind of reminding you, you asked this of me in actual words or in our conversation. And like, I'm helping to rein you in, not bad girl, bad girl,
Right.
bad
Or
girl.
you're so embarrassing me. Like, oh my God. Like there's a way of being like, come on back in. Like, come back in, come back inside.
Right.
You're out in the rain, come back inside versus like, I'm about to shame you because what you're doing is intolerable and I can't stand it. Big,
And right. And those two, there's, the difference is come back into the fold versus this contempt.
that's right. Right.
Contempt is like when you see contempt on somebody's like, even a micro expression of
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh, like that, feeling.
Yeah, and it's like it was what John got the Gottmans the doctors Gottman I can't remember I want to say John Gottman and then there was like but two of them married couple who are both researchers last name Gottman and they identified so they like it's like I love this stuff so we you just have to do this but like they started with something like 20 hours of footage of
And
couples.
this is, well, straight, just cut to the Malcolm Gladwell. The book was,
Yeah, the
it
good
was
book
from
was
the book
Blink.
Blink,
So go to Blink, and then the idea was like
and he got it from them,
right.
from
These
the study.
researchers studied couples in depth, like hours and hours of tape and then they got it down to where they could predict within like 5 minutes which
Yes.
which couples would stay together and which wouldn't. And the thing was they got them they brought the couples together and said, start talking about something that really like annoys you about each other. And it could be anything. It could be like from sex to the dishes, right? It doesn't matter.
Yes.
You leave the cap off the toothpaste, right? It could be that trivial, or it could be, I don't like the way you talk to my mother, huge or little, but they'd get them and they would find the couples who were like, when you speak to my mother in that way, it really, really hurts me and it a little bit offends me. That like straight up being able to talk about it versus like the rolling of the eyes,
Contempt.
the contempt, right? It's like, ugh, like you're not even worth talking to. It's not
The,
even
the, the
right,
visual I say is like either you're sitting on the same side of the table or you're
right.
sitting on opposing sides of the table. And one of the great things I thought was after a while, they didn't even have to have them have a conversation. They had them build a house of cards.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And they watched when it was like, you
Right,
never
when a little
like
piece of the
like
house falls down and someone goes like, "Oh, you're impossible." It's like
right,
iceberg dead ahead. Like this couple will
right,
not be together in a year and a half, right?
right.
Divorce court is
And
in
there it was
position.
almost always right on. There
Right.
you just can't. So this is part of the fundamentals. You can't lose anything that's yours. You can't have anything that's not. And so if someone you're like, but we have so many good things. It's like, yes, you may, but somebody who can't um, it's not just about, I want to call it celebrate you.
Hmm.
So, and in the best relationships, it's almost like that person's quote unquote flaw to anybody else
Right.
is almost the most endearing thing to the
Absolutely.
person that
Yeah.
they love. Like I obviously talk a lot. So if I'm going to be with a guy who's like, oh, here she goes again,
Right.
I that you I used to think to myself, I need to work on that. Now I'm around people who are like, oh, keep talking. So I got a job where my job is to talk to people all the time. And I have friends that say, I could not do this all day long. How do you even sleep at night with all the conversations you have? And I'm like, oh, I'm energized by it. So if I had spent the, most of my life trying to curb this bad habit of mine because some guy early in my life said you talk too much,
Right.
which certainly happened, I was twisting and turning where someone else might say, wow, that's so cool. How do you expand on that? Use that as a great, to expand yourself. So back to the original question,
Yeah.
the sort of fundamentals of coaching for me are the ideas of obviously inner guidance, and we're going to get into the difference. You can't lose anything that's yours. You can't have anything that's not. Number two would be when we're going to skip over this for a second. You can't be irrelevant, no
Okay.
matter how you can. People try to make themselves smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and you exist. So, what are you going to do with that existence? Okay, we're going to skip over that for a second. And the third thing is, I want to take credit for this, but I'm not going to. My best friend Beth came up with this years ago, and we always talk about it, but it's become a part of my coaching. Everybody knows everything.
I
Now
like
people
that.
are
You've
like,
been saying that recently, and I'm kind of like, I'm going to translate that a little bit in the way that I'm thinking about it and tell me there is on the level of Earth, on the level of Earth, there is not that we are each in our own bodies, we're each in our own experiences. I know things that you don't, you know things that I don't. We're kind of all trying, we're like different chess pieces trying to sort out the game together with different powers, but raise that up to the highest level, and there is a fundamental transparency to the whole universe. And that's the way when you say that, that's what I think.
bingo, Ringo. There you go. The thing is that they've done, I mean, I love I think her name is Vanessa Van Edwards. I've read her books,
Yes.
Hughes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's her name. I just adore her. And because it's her most famous book is called Cues. And it's all about, and she, you know, prefaces the book to say, I'm teaching you all these things for you to become better. Not, you can use anything for good or for evil. But if you don't, but please go out there and use it for good. And there's these micro expressions that we have. Like if you, when I say everybody knows everything, I mean it on such a deep level because we are literally connected. Quantum mechanics, guys. Go out.
We are
We're
connected.
be
We
as we
are on a fundamental level, we are all connected. Yeah.
fundamentally there is nothing between me and you. There is what looks like empty space is filled with molecule that knocks down molecule, it knocks down molecule, it knocks down molecule. We are connected. And at the same time, we're not always tapped into that connection. But everybody's had the experience of meeting somebody and recoiling, where you almost feel like you're going to do a backflip to get away from them. Like, someone comes into your orbit and you're like, okay. And why is that? Because something in us is saying, oh, no, 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 no. And we try to override that. So you're not fooling anybody.
Right.
We
Yeah.
want to be walking around fooling people. And that's where some of the great movies that, the Mr. Ripley and, like all, like you can, and the old saying, you can fool some of the people some of the time. You
Right.
can get away with that. But on a fundamental level, everybody knows everything. When we are just out of alignment with who we are, when we are not being honest with ourselves, or
Right.
with another person. And people know it. They
There's a
can
there's a
feel it.
there's a wonderful like a very obscure band called Momus. It's basically this one guy. His last name is Curry, but one of his cool songs. I just want to like
Oh,
send people out to whatever. There's a song called "The Age of Information," and
mhm.
it's sort of a laundry list of how the rules have changed from the past age to the present age.
Okay.
And in one of the verses, he compares the world, the previous world was like a game of cards where you could keep your cards to your chest. You can hide what you want. And now the world is like a game of chess where everything's on the board. So
Ooh, I like that.
as instead of, in some, I'm paraphrasing, but like, if you can't keep your cards to your chest, you better think a few moves ahead as you would in a game of chess. So all the pieces are on the board and everybody knows where everything is. And now it's like what goes on in your mind is you better think in those terms, not in terms of hiding who you are.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that if you get the idea that everybody knows everything, you know, that your instinct about things and you start working that muscle. This is the first level in the coaching that I do is we're introducing ourselves to our inner critic, which is we're going to just quickly go over it's the your inner critic is the voice in your head that is rotten and nasty and mean and critical. It's that inner critic is tapped into the collective consciousness of negativity, which for some reason it's very easy. If I say to people, do you have an inner critic? They're like, oh yeah, I got that. And on the other side, the flip that pancake over, and the other side of every equation, there's something else. And the other side of that is this inner guidance, which is again, we start to develop a relationship with our inner guidance the way we would start to develop a relationship with our body. If we went to the gym, we have to go to the emotional gym and start to build on. So that's why I said so many sayings, you know, in it, that I was like, again, the 20th century just gave some sayings that were like, really? Like, okay.
Mhm.
Um, I wrote down some. Money doesn't grow on trees. No pain, no gain. Spare the rod, spoil the child. Children should be seen and not heard. I'll give you something to cry about. Like when a kid's crying, it's like, now my rule of thumb for this next phase of phrases we want to get good at understanding and why, because when you go to those things, they're they're part of the oh, your word, I love when you add new words by like zeitgeist.
Zeitgeist. Okay, good word.
Well, I learned so many words from you. You have this grand vocabulary and I love it. It's We lean on these things and we don't question them, but are they helpful? You can't lose anything that's yours and you can't have anything that's not, is helpful when you feel like you're drowning. Something or someone you've wanted. It could be a job. You're waiting for a job to call and it's like, I don't know how I'm going to make it through if I don't get this job. And what sayings can we replace things with? Like I used to say, everything happens for a reason. And I changed it to everything happens for a good reason. Now, that is not something that you're going to say to somebody who's just been through something really, really upsetting in their life. But down the road, you're going to start to see that things that have happened are happening for your benefit. What is the one thing that you taught me? You either, like in life, you either get exactly what you want or you get the lesson that helps
Will
you to
bring
rise
you
up,
that. Will bring you that. And I've
will bring
really,
you.
I've really found that the more that I lean into that, it could be, and really it could be as simple as, I notice I don't have this thing. I notice that this is missing from my life, whatever that is. It's like, well, what do I have? oh, I have this. Okay. How are those two things connected? Like, how is what I have going to help me to become the person? Because again, like, what I want to do, like the thing that you said about you can't lose anything, dot, 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 right? It's
Hmm.
like there is the kind of holding on to something that is like desperate clinging and ultimately not going to work. There's like that. And then there is, in other words, like I'll give you a funny example. Like we used to have, remember when we were little, we had a cat named Whitey. It was a white cat named Whitey, right? Right. We're laughing at that for, there's a bunch of reasons, but I would, when I was a kid, I would every once in a while think, and I was like 6 years old or something like that, like, oh, I want to like hang out with Whitey, right? I want to hang out with the cat. Now the cat's got other plans. Cats always have other plans, right?
Yeah.
So I'd like, I'm a kid, I'd pick up the cat and bring the cat in my room and close the door, and then the cat would immediately be like,
Scrap,
yo,
get me
man,
out of here.
I'm not into this. I have other things to do, And so like at the door, scratching, trying to get out, right? Well, this is not that, like, do you want to be married to a person who metaphorically is scratching at the door, trying to get out? Like, you don't,
Like,
right? And then there's the way of
also,
being where the cat comes to you, where it's just like you're hanging out. Like if you're hanging out, you know what it's like where you're doing a jigsaw puzzle on the floor and you're a
and
kid.
the cat's going to come sit right
Where's
down
the
in the middle
cat?
of it,
Where's the cat? The cat is gonna lie down in the middle of your jigsaw puzzle, right? So if you want
especially
the
on the
cat,
computer.
what's that?
Bring your computer out. Watch the cat sit right down on the computer.
Exactly. That's so
And,
if you want the cat, don't necessarily go after the cat. Get the jigsaw puzzle, right? Get the thing.
yeah, and the jigsaw
That'll
puzzle
come.
is, it's like have a life worth being involved with, and the people that join your party and that feel good there, it's like throwing a party and all to get this one person to show up at your party, and everybody comes that loves you except for this one person who you're desperate and you're sort of like trying to reel in, and they don't show. It's like, and the party's ruined.
Right.
And the thing is, if they are yours, you
Mhm.
can't lose that person.
Right.
You can't lose anything that's yours. You can't have the job that's not yours. It's somebody else's. Let it go to them and
Right.
still want the essence of what that is. It's so important to understand you can want this amazing job as, an artist, a doctor, a lawyer, whatever it is you want to do.
It's funny because you brought back something from when I was much, much younger, but like I was seeing this guy, um, and we had gone out for a few times and I was all into him and whatever, and then he broke up with me. He totally broke up. Okay, great. Okay. So then about I don't know, that was the fall, that was in the spring. Now it's the summer and I've got this outing planned with a bunch of people, some friends. Um, and since it's up in North Jersey, I'm inviting him. So I'm calling him. I'm like, hey, I'm in the area. And if you want to come, it's going to be a great day and blah, 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 whatever. So again, shout out to Barry, who's married to Adam for probably many years. I hope Barry's out there. She's awesome. But like many, many years ago. So like she's like, she had just met me and she's just like one of these people. She's like totally straight up. She's like 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 born and bred in New Jersey and like straight up, right? Straight up. So she's like, she sees me, I'm on the phone. I'm like, well, maybe we should wait another 10 minutes. It was like, she grabs me by the arm. She's got like the arm, the hand on the arm. She's like, okay, darling, here's what's going to happen. Your friend, he's not going to show up. He doesn't care about you. So what we're going to do is we're all going to go out. We're going to have a really nice day and you're going to have a great time and you're not going to argue with me. Okay. So that's what we're going to do. And you're going to forget all about him when we go to Fire Island. We're going to have a lovely day together on the beach. How does that sound? And I'm like, yes, ma'am. And she's like, good. And that's exactly what happened. And it was amazing. I was my first time,
Right.
my only time in Fire Island, and it was fun. But if I had been hanging on to, let me just call this person one more time, I mean, like it would have been like, beautiful day at the beach, ruined. And she did not let that happen. And I was smart
Right.
enough to listen.
And in the beginning of like especially when I'm coaching young young person, I'm saying 20 to 30. Let's just call them that age.
Yeah.
Any age that works for any age. It, and one of the things that they say, like, they're, especially for women, their biological clock has just kicked in. They're 28 or something, and they're like, now they're on the hunt for, I said, it's not you, it's your anthropology, that, your ovaries are searching for your man, like, not, and, and, you know, so your biology is kicked in, you're looking for something that, and people are like, well, maybe I shouldn't want this. Maybe, and I'm like, don't change what you want, but change the idea that the way it has to come is through this specific person. And they were like, well, what do I have to get good at to do that? I said, I'm going to tell it to you straight. You want to meet the right person for you, get really good at breaking up with people.
Right.
Like, they're like, excuse me? I'm like, well, let's look at the past year we've been doing coaching. When I first met you, you've been with this guy for 5 years, and you took a few months, couple 6 months to break up with him. Then you went out with another guy for, you know, 6 months, and wrong breakup. Then it was 3 months. Then it was 3 weeks. Now you're going out on dates, and you're starting to get that inner guidance on
Right.
the
By the
first
third
date.
date, it's like, bam.
And it's like, and they, and I said, don't make an excuse up. Be straight up. Be what always the idea of be the person you want to date. So if you wouldn't you rather, I mean, I love the movie and the concept of he's just not that into you.
Yes.
Like, people, it's
Very
it's
important concept.
it's a very important concept, because doesn't mean giving up on love or giving up on the job of your life, giving up on any specific thing.
It means
It's
giving
the
up on
way.
one of 8 billion people on the planet. Right.
Right. And that's so important. Get really good at saying to yourself, wow, I'm on the third date, and it's like, he's on his phone the whole date. He's walking away from the table. He's watching other women as they walk by, or whatever the thing is. And you pick up on it, because before you were thinking about a specific person and how you're going to fit into that specific lifestyle, and all this. And now you're thinking about what's right for me. And also, we've talked about this before. If they're not right for you, you're not right for them. So you're
Right.
holding each other back from. So that
Right.
let's move on to another concept, because
Well,
this one we've
before you
done.
say anything else, like I just wanted to add that, like the it makes sense if I'm 5 feet from you, then you're 5 feet from me. Like, it's not possible for anything to be other. And I like that. That's my analogy from it. Is like, if this person is far away from you, it turns out you're far away from them. Like,
Right. And
right.
we could say, no, he completes me. It's like, no, he doesn't,
No, he
honey.
does. A good friend of mine years ago said, I had that same argument. Oh, this person's perfect. And he's like, okay, on your list of perfect should be this person truly wants to be with you. If that's not on the list, your list is incomplete. This person is not perfect. Okay? Do you get that? Because if you don't, go home and study it. It's the truth.
Absolutely. So I'm just okay. So another thing that I do in the first, second, third session, and it continues throughout, we go back to it. It's the I the idea of, like, people have to be a little uncomfortable to grow. Growth is has it's and most people are so much more uncomfortable with things that are positive than things that are negative. We just live in a world where we turn on the news, and so I ask people on the first or second session, tell me 10 amazing things about yourself. And they're like, oh, really? Okay. Do I have to? And I'm like, yes. And they're so, we go through this, and in the beginning, it's very hard for people to say, well, I mean, they can't even if they're the most, I mean, I coach some of the most beautiful people in the world, literally some of the most beautiful people in the world.
Supermodels.
And yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
right.
And so many, of these people are, they can't even say, I feel beautiful, or I feel strong, or
You
I
would think that
feel
they know that from their resume, right? Like
right.
walk the catwalk in Milan, walk the catwalk in Paris. Like, that probably you're better than average, right? Can't, but they're not. They
Right.
didn't
And
get
we're
the
not
memo.
even right. And we're not even talking about, uh, you know, people are more likely to be able to say something amazing about themselves if it has to do. So sometimes I'll just find a doorway and that has to do with work. Are you a hard worker? Oh yeah, I'm a hard worker. So you can start a little bit like, you know, you know, are you a devoted friend? Oh yeah, I'm a devoted friend. So we start to see like, what do I consider amazing? And but I do this. I said, no, 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 no. I didn't ask what I mean, everybody has a list that they can rattle off. If you say, tell me what's wrong with you, they can just
Oh yeah, right.
jump right in. But that, like, there's a discomfort in positivity. And again, we've talked about this before, and we're going to circle back around, widening and widening the scope of what we're talking about on this podcast. And the idea that we know so quickly what's wrong with us, and we know it's almost impossible to know what's right about us until we practice. And I ask people, you know, kids and parents, sit down at the dinner table and just go around the table. Make it a game that you do, after the session. Tonight, you're sitting down with someone and just say, tell me 10 amazing things about yourself. Most time 10 is way too much for people. Like, sometimes we let get away with three. Give me three amazing things. Well, after we, like, well, I am a hard worker. Like, I think I'm a really good friend. I'm really good at math, or I'm really good at, whatever, anything. Like, I say, okay, so do you pay your bills on time? Oh yeah, of course I pay my bills on time. So that you're real. Do you are you good at cleaning your house? Yeah, I'm really good at cleaning my house. Or you get, no, that's something I want to work on. Okay,
Oh,
that's
no,
something
that's a
we'll
big
work on.
person, right?
But we're trying to define what it is that's already working so that we can build on, and getting comfortable,
Right.
not only taking a compliment, but if you can't take a compliment, you probably can't give a genuine compliment.
That's right. And when it comes to things like for example, like the kind of person who does the dishes, for example, does the dishes, like doesn't leave a big stack full of dishes in the sink, for like that would be anathema to them. They can't, so if you're that person, it's very likely that you might brush that aside and say like, well, yes, of course I do the dishes because dot dot dot. Why? Like, I'm not, and it's like, but wait, stop. Is it true that everybody in the world does the dishes? Like, have you ever been in someone's house where you're like, oh my God, there's dishes from 1943 in that sink, right? Like you laugh, but like, can you give, instead of making it, if I don't do the dishes,
Right,
I'm a terrible person. People like, can you frame it as kudos for me? There's a lot of people in the world who are great people who don't manage to get the dishes done, but I do. Lucky me. Isn't that good? Can you frame
right,
that as a positive for you rather than a judgment against the rest of the world? Because it's
right,
better to walk through the world that way.
right. And the thing is that self focus and knowing what you're doing well, it frees you. Like, false humility is not humility. Oh no, 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 little of me, like, I know I slave around the house and I clean and whatever, but it's no big deal. That's like that's not humility. And ironically, when we talk about some of the beautiful women that I coach, uh, actually, that's one of the things. A lot of them have no, this is how you have a conversation with someone. Tell me 10 amazing things about you, and they, we work on it, whatever. And I say, oh, you're very beautiful. That's amazing. And they say, well, that's not something I do. That was a gift from God. And like, like, next, their humility is like, because they know they're beautiful,
Right.
they're not coming from a place of I need to make this a big deal. It's amazing how they're just like, yeah, that's fine. Like, what now? What else will we talk? Let's work on
Lucky me,
the
as
other stuff.
opposed to something that would be of like they might have really worked hard on, for example, being on time. Like that might have been a thing that they struggled with, and they feel really proud of it. Like, like I'm a person who, gosh darn it, I'm 5 minutes like early for every single appointment ever. I do not keep people waiting. I don't want, I consider it rude, and I worked on it. They might feel really good about that. Whereas like, world class beautiful is sort of like, yeah, lucky me, right?
Right, right. It's a different energy, and not that any one thing that's amazing about you. It's as you get to know what's amazing about yourself, it sort of incorporates and is something you can exhale about. And it's part of you're not seeking external validation for these things that you come to know about yourself. Yeah, I'm a person who is on time, and I am really proud of that. But when you need somebody to say, great job because you're on time, the world doesn't always give you that validation. But if you can internalize that and say, I'm super proud of this, that, and the other thing about myself, you come at the world with a humility that's real. And with and so moving on to another um, basis of being in Tammy's coaching world is how coachable are you? And how do you distinguish being whether you're coachable or not? How willing are you to be wrong when you're wrong?
Or even
And
wrong, and wrong, like remember that wrong feels like right. There was a great TED talk where someone said, you know what the difference between being wrong and being right is? They both feel exactly the same, so there's no difference. Like when you're wrong, like I know that the capital of Wisconsin is, you know, Topeka. It feels like you're right. So
right. And so when there's a way that I use these words, again, changing language, sort of like from right and wrong to being sort of on or off, right? Like so if the ability to be to entertain the idea that you might be wrong about something or off about something,
yes.
like sometimes just the ability to entertain that idea, huh?
I've got a great, and I'm not going to, in this case, I'm not going to mention names because like when I mention when someone's, but like I had a conversation with someone about, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years ago, and this person was going off on a celebrity. Again, like leave it all out.
Leave it out, yeah.
Leave it out. But like to the point where they're like, this celebrity needs to be canceled for whatever reason. For whatever reason. Okay. And I'm
Not
like,
a fan of that phrase, but okay,
no,
yeah.
I'm not either. I'm not either. I like it's very dehumanizing because like you cancel a program, cancel a party. Human beings is sort of like we canceled that person. Like that's wow, you're talking about that person.
It's another bad saying.
It's another
It's
bad
like
thing.
again,
It's a
it's
newer
another
one.
bad.
It's newer, right?
Right,
But yeah, like
right.
I find it's very dehumanizing. Like, wow, do you want to have them put to death? Like, well, no, I don't know. I just mean like entirely destroy their reputation and ruin their life. It's like, oh, okay, well, as long as you're not talking about putting them to death, right? So okay. And I was listening because I just really didn't want to be in opposition. I was just like, I'm here, we're having
Sure,
dinner. I will listen. So, and I said, but they're really going off on this. And then, here's all the reasons and this why this person's a bad person and and I'm like, And I was like, so just kind of laid out like, so is it possible that you may be wrong about this person? And the answer was like, absolutely not. I am absolutely 100% not wrong. And I'm like,
when
that's
the decibels
fine.
go up, the
Right,
more likely you are to
right.
be off.
Like
Like
I could be wrong that my name is Mark. Like I'm willing to entertain that someone could walk in the room and say, "Oh, Mark, it turns out you were adopted and your name is Steven." And I'm like, "Wow, that's news to me. I guess I'll have to adjust to that." Like I'm willing to entertain that much, let alone like I heard a lot of stuff about this celebrity and this person should be like ground into dust. So, but that was, and I've been that too. I mean, that's like, it's like if you're like on the scale from like zero, no attachment to like, into the red with like, are you attached? Or are you something? I'm definitely not attached. I'm absolutely positively sure. I'm like,
Right. When you hear yourself, these are the cues that we want to pick up on
for
in
yourself
ourselves.
or
Like,
for other people.
right, if someone is screaming and so sure, whenever I find myself when absolutely positively sure about something, if I need to be out there convincing, I say, can I entertain the idea that something is off with me? If I'm sure about something that's a belief system that makes me feel safe and comfortable, I don't even need to talk about it.
That's
It's
right.
like the thing to me is also a question, again, changing the language. I want people to constantly say, is this belief that I'm so sure about, is it helpful? Is it useful or helpful?
Right.
These are ways. And so if someone, like whether we talk a lot on this podcast about belief systems and the universe, somebody might call it God, somebody might call it the universe, somebody might call it the quantum field. So if you're comfortable with what you call it, you don't need anybody else to call it that same thing. If you're, if you need to proselytize about something, like, no, this particular sliver of language is the only way we can that it's real, then you need to entertain the idea that you may not be so sure. When you're sure about something and somebody has a slightly different version of the way to explain it, you're like, that's kind of cool. Like, okay, for you, for me, maybe I say the universe. And it's sometimes like when I'm talking about speaking to the universe, I could in my own mind call it prayer.
I had
And
when I
if I'm
was,
speaking to someone who's not comfortable with that word, I could say, ask the quantum field, like ask the universe. It doesn't move me to
no, I need you to
upset.
use this word. When I was, years ago, I was in a 12-step group, and in 12-step group, I mean, I'm still, but in a specific group of people. And in one case, there was a woman who, if you know anything about the 12 steps, it's like there's came to believe that a higher power, first step, came to believe that a higher power could, second step, but,
Yeah, higher power, great
using the
language,
words higher power. And she was not comfortable, essentially a comfortable atheist, or at the very least agnostic. But what she had found was that she said, I use time as my higher power because all of us are subject to time, and in time we will all no longer exist on this plane, so that is my higher power. And it's like, came to believe that, so that's was her way of looking at it. And I was like, great, it's like one more way of looking at the world and one more interesting
Right.
notion.
Abundant thinking. I mean,
Right.
that's the idea that we can all have, we're adding things that are helpful if someone can't grasp, like there are many people that can only use the word God, and that's fine. That works for them. But if you're trying to reach, as 12-step programs are, many different kinds of people, then why not have another, spice to add to the soup? Or what is the goal of a 12-step group? From what I understand from you, it's like I'm just, have personally been in one, but is that you're trying to improve, correct?
And
You're
it's
improve.
trying to be a place where as many people as possible can come together and be in the same space of healing. So, for example, the idea that there's no crosstalk, that is, if someone says, I'm going to talk about what happened with me this week to get, to get current, that someone else doesn't stand up and say, well, that was a stupid thing to do. Why did you do that? Or even or even, wow, that was a really brave thing you did, Margaret. Like that's both of those are frowned upon. It's like speak it into the room, and
Interesting.
then and someone can come up to you at the end of the group and say, is it okay? Can I comment on your share? And when you know someone, you know that there's a little bit of latitude and elbow room. But if you don't know someone, you might want to say like, like I was very moved by what you said. Is it okay if I comment on that? Or is it okay if I ask you something? And if someone says like, I really don't want to talk about it, it was very traumatic. I was like, that's fine. So
Right.
you're creating this space where as many people who don't even know each other can come into the space and interact in a way that's healthy. It's quite an amazing sort of thing.
And that leads me to a saying, like, again, a lot of this is, saying upon saying upon saying upon saying, because what are we trying to do? Give people language to fall back on when they don't, when things aren't going well. When things are going well, you don't need a lot to fall back on because you're in the moment, in the present. How do we stay in the present moment? It's when you fall back on these sayings, and one of them was from you years ago. Notice whether someone asks for permission or forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
You told me that one. And I hang on to that. I tell all my clients, if somebody walks up to you, in that scenario, even afterwards and says, this is what I thought about what you said, even if it's an amazing comment, did they ask for permission? And if you say, like, this is really uncomfortable for me, this is really uncomfortable for me. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's like once in a while that'll happen where someone's exuberant and they'll do that. But if, you know, oh, 3 times a week, my husband doesn't come home or text when he says he's going to text. And every single time he's sorry.
And then he sort of
Well,
extracts a
like,
uh
why are you so uptight
right, or it's
that I
sort of
did?
like,
Like, I
yeah, I extracts
apologize.
forgiveness from me. Right. That's another sign, right?
Right. Like, I'm really sorry. I said I'm sorry. And it's like we walk away scratching our head saying, they said they're sorry. And yet what we're really looking for is, hey, honey, like if you're getting on a plane, you're going on this business trip, and I'm going to be worried. Would you mind when the plane lands, or when the Wi-Fi, when you can do it again, text me and say landed safely.
Right.
That's it. That's all I need for me to fall asleep tonight. And then if they don't, it's like, why are you so, this is what I've heard from people. Why are you so uptight? I didn't have a chance. I was really busy. It's like, I'm really sorry about that. Well, being sorry, every once in a while, we're going to have to ask for forgiveness. And that's fair. I mean, you like, they're like rushing you off the plane. Your bags got lost in whatever. Your phone, died on the plane. You
All the
haven't had a
above.
chance to charge it. Fair enough. We're not talking about perfection. We're talking about um, the idea that we're in a realm, like 99% of the time this person is on it with me. We're in it together. We're,
Right.
it's on, we're going well. But when people are constantly asking for forgiveness instead of permission, how about saying, I know you want me to text you when the plane lands, but it is almost impossible for me to do that. I will is it okay with you if I text you the moment I get to the hotel?
Right.
Permission. And then we have an agreement. I'm not, so it's going to be this 8-hour flight plus probably an hour. All expectations are set. Do you see the difference that it sets you up for success? What
Right.
are we trying to accomplish here? Is harmony what we're trying to accomplish? Because you can both have your way. I can't
Right.
text the second the plane lands. It's just not possible. And at the same time, I don't want you up all night worrying.
Right. And it's like I think harmony is a really good, that's a really good word. Um in my relationship, I like there are um the things almost 7 years in that you never could have known a year in or even 4 years in. That was, that's now incorporated where it's like, after the first time you step in duty or whatever in your relationship, and you are informed of it, you're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I didn't know. And then the second time, it's like, oh my God, I forgot. And then the third time, it's like, oh my God, I totally didn't give a shit because I'm in another world. It's like, that doesn't really cut it. So at a certain point, it's like, if you are informed over and over again of like, you know, in as nice a way as possible. I mean, it could be like, when you do this, it hurts my feelings, or it could just be like, I am now moved into the irate column and I'm gonna be there for a while. It can happen either way, but it is informative. It's sort of like, oh, when I do that, it hurts him so much that he gets really angry, and that's not what I ever wanted when I woke up this morning. So I'm trying to take the information from last year and incorporate it into the behavior from today so that next
Right.
less of that stuff, right?
So what I'm talking about is when things are going sideways, is like, what do we grasp onto when like the guy, like I remember when I was in my 20s, and this is way before cell phones, and someone, a guy that I was really interested in, we were supposed to go on a date one night, and it was my first real venture into therapy. And I went to my therapist and I said, I was supposed to go on a date with this guy, and he didn't call before cell phones. And he called the next day and said, "Oh, I was, you know, sprained my ankle and I was in the hospital last night." And the first thing the therapist said to me was, because he was like, "I'm so sorry I didn't call." And this is the beginning of our, she said, "There's no phones in a hospital." He was he there by himself? Was like, he couldn't have called you when he got home from the hospital, left a message on the answering machine. And I was like, well, that's like, I mean, he was in the hospital. And like, of course, the next three times he was supposed to show up, there was another excuse,
Right.
which he
My grandmother
apologized for
died. My other
profusely.
grandmother died. Right. Like that. My cat got hit by a bus. My right. I wouldn't
Right. But the thing is that if you start noticing it, the reason I'm putting a fine point on language, how many times has someone, what would you say to, like, to a young person like myself at the time I was in my 20s, and I started noticing a pattern that I dated guys who were always apologizing for these things. And when you had said to me in my 30s, that why aren't they asking for permission instead? So I it put language
Why are they asking for
to it an
forgiveness instead of
amorphous,
right, right?
right?
Why are they
Like
asking
like
after the fact to be forgiven when they could have asked before the fact to sort out where
because it takes a fortitude, the kind. Also, I was a magnet. Like, again, when we're going to getting into buzzwords, the law of attraction, I was attracting guys. I was sort of like, like, oh, okay, like, like, he's really sorry. But I didn't know it. Like, I was like, he's sorry, and he's sorry, and he's sorry, and he's sorry. And every time I was like, like, why am I not understanding enough? Like, he's apologized. Like, what's wrong with me? We always turn it in ourselves. And it's like, I'm not saying that it's always the other person. Like, I'm in an agreement with him after a while, an unspoken agreement. But to add in the idea that someone can, you mean there are people that ask for permission, like, hey, I'd like to go out on Thursday night, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be available on Thursday night. Can I call you Wednesday and we'll set it up? That's permission.
right,
Instead of saying, let's go out on Thursday night, and Thursday comes, all day Thursday, you're waiting by the phone and it never comes. It's like, wait a minute. Do you mean there's a new paradigm? We have to have a paradigm shift, that, and that is about creating words. Like, what, it's okay to also be upset in this world. Like, we can be upset. Why do all my clients know the phrase flip the pancake? Now, the reason I create sayings, catchphrases, because we can remember a catchphrase much more easily when we don't, when we are dysregulated,
In a
when we're upset.
right, right.
Right. So for me, the like when a client is getting worked up, so the long explanation of flipping the pancake is this. When you are finding yourself getting really worked up about something, what is the positive use of negativity? The positive use of negativity is to notice it and to pivot from it.
Right, right.
Okay. But if I had to say that whole thing every time somebody was, I say fighting for their limitations. Well, you don't understand. Like he was, like he didn't, he couldn't get to a phone. His cell phone, like blah blah blah. They're fighting for the very thing that they want to change. So the best use of negativity is to pivot from it to positivity. So, and I'm not talking about pathological positivity where you are not facing what's in the room happening. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about fighting for your own limitations. When I see someone saying like, but this, it's like, okay, let's flip that pancake. What's on the other side of he hasn't called the past 6 times he said he was going to call, and now flip that pancake. What are you learning from this? So
Right.
the negative thing happens, flipped. What's the other side of that equation?
Who am I, for example, wow, what do I think of myself that I just made excuses for him the last 5 times? And now it's taken 6 times of getting hit in the face with this thing before I'm ready to say, I don't like this behavior. I don't want to be in a relationship like this. Like that's flip the peg. It's like you're taking
Right.
it to yourself. Like I don't have to be here. Right? Like what does this say about me? What is this? It's a mirror held up, and I don't really look good in that mirror right now, but it is instructive.
Yes. And so again, so let's all, this particular podcast is a lot about sayings, right? And how do we discover what's the ultimate goal for me? What I want to say, what's the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is self-actualization and
Beautiful.
happiness.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have said it better. The words that came to my joy, self-actualization. That was exactly.
Joy,
There it is.
right?
There
Like
it is. Right.
living in joy.
Right.
So
And when you say
happiness,
self-actualization, like becoming the full human being that you were meant to be, just like, what's the purpose of a rose? A rose is like a little seed that, like, if given the right things, it comes together and for a moment it just blossoms into this beautiful thing and then it's gone. That
right? And
human
then and
beings
then
can blossom in like dimensions that a rose never can. Right.
right. So what we're trying to do is become the best versions of ourselves, which is those best versions of ourselves are within us already. We are carrying the seeds of that. And how do we walk around with what, accepting like people watering us, sending us sunshine, watering us, our plants, of us blooming. And how do we walk around helping other people to self-actualize? That's the whole purpose of being here beyond.
Pretty accurate so far.
Right. And with language, new language, we create stories that are attached to language. There was a story in the 19s in the 1970s, early 80s, where, I've probably told this before, where someone said to me after I had my son, and it was like, put the baby down. You're holding the baby too much. You're going to spoil the baby. That was a story that seems insane in this day and age.
Yes.
How can you spoil an infant? I used to carry my son a
with
lot. Like I say,
motherly attention. Right.
I'm only going to be able to carry him for like at about
Right.
10 months. He's going to be
When they're
walking.
right when they get to be 3 years old, it's like it's really hard. They get heavier.
Yeah, and also
Right.
they're like,
They're running right.
right. But I
Well,
mean, there was
like you mentioned another one that comes to mind is like a story from the 1950s. So there was this period of time where the story of breastfeeding was science has come up with much better things than breast milk. Right. So there was this period, like there was, I don't know how, a 10, 15-year period where
yeah,
it's like modern science has created better things than breast milk, and breastfeeding is old-fashioned. It's what our grandparents did, and we don't do that. And then science moved forward, and it's like, oh, science now says that considering that humans have been on this planet for like, hundreds of thousands of years and mammals have existed for millions, that evolution, from an evolutionary perspective, there might be something in breast milk that we want to reconsider. That's pretty
Right.
amazing. So, like,
And
from science says this to science says that, it's not that it's science is a fad. It's just that, like, things get
science is
evolved.
evolving.
Science itself is evolving, right?
Right. Before and just about breast milk, let's put it this way. Like I was complete mom was of that our mom was of that generation. And she just I had my son very young and discouraged me, like, ew, that like you don't need to breastfeed. Like it was just like it was sort of taken off the table because you believe your parents, and I was young. So and and yet there are times in that science is fantastic. There are certain women that can't produce enough milk. God bless formula. Like, it's a
Absolutely.
supplement.
Right. Right.
Right. Like, do you see how, like, something could be, someone's going to shame someone for not breastfeeding and, and, and you say, well, I can't breastfeed, so I should let my child starve. No, we have modern science. This is going to, starving
So
or
there's an
or
evolution,
bottle
right? There's
feeding.
this, right? There's like, you're right, like that, like shaming women who choose not to or can't, like that
Right.
itself is an like, oh, okay, so maybe we don't eat, we're evolving past that too. We're certainly evolving out of the like leave the baby to cry thing, right? Like we're, like, but then,
Right.
there's okay, go on. You're great. You're good.
Well, the point is, I want to change the language. Wrong or right. It's not wrong or right. It's wrong for you or right for you. Two people can have the identical scenarios put in front of them. Here's your baby. Breastfeeding for one is absolutely on. Like that's, and for someone else, it it may not be the correct thing in that moment for them. Right for you or wrong for you, not right or wrong. The for you is a very important, add that addendum and
Right.
cut off other addendums that don't open us up you know the evolution of what we're doing here,
Right.
to self-actualization. you know I talk about our connection to our inner guidance, which is the first leg of the tour, so to speak, when people come in coaching with me. And some people are super connected to their inner guidance. They're really connected. And so we move on to this next concept it's so I'm in the beginning of teaching it to my clients because I don't teach what I'm not trying to learn myself. It's just, full disclosure. It's like, why do people become a life coach? Why did I become a life coach? Because I needed life coaching. So
Understood.
I you're on a healing path. It's just a natural thing to want, for me, was natural to want to share it. So we learn about inner guidance and how when something hits you as, wow, that really resonates with me. That really resonates with me. That's just okay. So now then there was this next phase that I am starting to see where people are like, I shouldn't need any external validation at all. Like, so I am going to be this, you know,
Oh,
island in the
right.
storm.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going to be the island in the storm. I'm not going to need anybody. Or it's like, wait a minute, we are communal creatures. We are going to, you know, we need touchstones, people who are touchstones. But at the same time, the way we need touchstones to say, hey, should I take this job or this job? And we talk to our five closest friends, and none of them are really feeling right. We do need something to go to bounce it off of. And that's in our inner guidance where it's like, that doesn't quite feel like that. Like, well, that feels right, you know? And And now we're going, it's the idea of why do we not need external validation? External validation is almost like a dirty word. You need, like, you shouldn't need that. Well, what about the idea of going, I say kind of look at the yuck of the negative collective consciousness, sort of like a layer that we turn the TV on. It's sort of it's in there, right? You turn the
Yeah,
TV on and you're like, skipping through
yeah,
the news channels, and you're saying this
right.
is all part of the collective negative consciousness, including all my memories of, my inner critic is like it's like eating it for dinner. Like, oh, turn on the TV. It's all, like,
Right.
you're
The one
feeding that
the one
beast.
I've been thinking recently is, it's like the clickbaity one, the one that's like, like your favorite star. It's like, here's the three actresses that he really hated. And then you're like, oh, click, I want to see, whatever. It's like, first of all, it's really negative. And then when you finally get there, it turns out like, like, I don't know, like Kevin Costner and Sean Young disagreed 30 years ago about how to play this scene. So they had a salad together and talked it out. And then they went back to the set and they performed it. It's sort of like, what is like, where's the hatred? Where's like
Right,
there's
but
so much
also
less
we
of
start,
that in
if
reality.
you're right, and also, but once we get down that rabbit hole, we sort of create a pattern where that that wasn't enough. That negativity wasn't enough. Let's dig a little deeper, pick that scar a little more, pick that, so we're going down that rabbit hole. And externally, there's I want to, like, think of the universe as sort of like a layer cake, like layers of positivity, negativity, all these things in there. And when we get to the sort of the icing on the cake, which most people never get to, it's like where I'm learning, like, how do we know if something is inner critic, inner guidance? Well, we've spoken about it before. Inner critic is loud, it's mean, it's nasty, and it speaks first. Inner guidance is quiet, it takes listening, it's kind, and it's waiting for us to engage it. And we can engage it by, first of all, noticing. I'm just using this direction for any reason. We start hearing a voice inside of us that's calming and soothing. But at times, what is that voice connected to? Like, this is the next level, sort of beyond just inner guidance, beyond, right? Inner guidance. It's that voice, this voice, the inner critic, is sort of plugged into all of the negativity in this universe, plugged in.
Right.
And we are very comfortable. And it's you can scroll all day long and almost get nonstop this. But where do we go that's sort of above that? You want to think of it as like the smog, like the layer of yuck. And above that is universal intelligence. It's like, it's spiritual intelligence, inner guidance, and external guidance that is the universe at large, which is built and made like, it is made of love. The loving universe, the loving, you know, it's beyond a collective consciousness. It's creation itself.
And it
Creation.
it is, yeah, I like to think of it also as the cutting edge of creation. And as you speak,
Yes.
I want to give as some credence to the inner critic, because it's not all bad and it's not all wrong. It is, however, very out of date. So what I mean by that is, if you think about, like, you thinking about epigenetics, which is the idea that under one situation a gene will emerge because it's being called by circumstances, and in another, like, if it rains this will happen, but if it's sunny this will happen. If an organism is in danger constantly, this set of genes will arise to compensate and protect the organism. Whereas over here, if this organism is not in danger, then this other set, the difference between, like, this plant needs to root in deep because it's in danger versus this plant is free to bloom because it's not in danger, right? So given all that background, I think of the inner critic as if you go back 100, 200 years, almost everyone in the world was desperately poor, desperately hungry, having children and losing them in childbirth, living to,
Okay.
like living, if lucky, living to 30 or 40, maybe 50, right? Um, Life was massively more precarious for almost everybody, and even people who were very affluent, were there was no medical science.
Right.
So
There was no electric light bulb.
right,
They were
exactly.
going
So
to the, there was, no matter how much money you had, you would go into the bathroom in the outhouse. That
right,
was the way
if
it
you
was.
watch
There
if
was
you
no
watch
indoor
Game of
plumbing.
Thrones, you see, like, look, the queen's got a chamber pot and somebody's emptying it, but it's not as good as what you've probably got if you're watching this podcast. So given all that, the inner critic arose to protect us over millennia of tremendous hardship.
Well,
And right,
essentially, it's your amygdala.
it's
It's
your
the
amygdala.
fight,
It's
flight.
right,
Right.
exactly. That's
So
right.
where it's like it's I I want to make a slight adjustment to where you're going with it because where you're going is a great place. But the inner critic is always wrong and negative. Now, the the thing about it is that it doesn't mean that we can't use something if you hundreds of thousands of years ago, if you were being chased by a tiger in the jungle and your amygdala, which was not what we've developed into the inner critic. I want to go, I think what you're saying is before the inner critic became the inner critic, it was like saying,
Danger,
you
danger,
know,
Will Robinson, run.
right,
Correct.
when the tiger's chasing you in the jungle, run.
Right. But
But
it's a
with the
very
different
clean response. It's a very
right,
like
but that is
on
not.
off.
I want to clarify that that is not the inner. The inner critic is an and the evolution of some. That's like saying, skin is bad or eyes are bad or your frontal lobe is better than your amygdala. Like we're not saying that. uh, Inner critic, I'm differentiating it by your inner critic is the part of you that even though it thinks it's trying to help you is hurting you in this stage where we're at now. It is evolved to, you know I am, you know sitting on the couch, you know eating ice cream. Like, it's, think of it as the part of you that is trying to hurt you to save itself. It will sacrifice you to save itself. Your amygdala back in the day
Mhm.
was trying to save you.
So you could another way you could think of it, and like I like the direction you're going because I think you're right about that. It's like
Yeah.
the amygdala has a function. The function of the amygdala is to be used in acute situations, right? Like
Safety.
safety. There's a danger, like
Real safety.
like fight or flight, instant, fast, and then you outrun the bear if you can, and then if you're there afterwards, it's like, okay, come
So
back.
I'm saying
Right.
is that your inner critic now is using your amygdala on and juicing
It's
it up on
right. That's it
steroids.
exactly. It's a chronic. It's the difference between an acute, like there's a bear, oh run, versus a chronic. And you think about it, it's like, do you have friends? Do you know people who are like always worried about something that like there? It's like this. It's like the amygdala was never meant to run 24/7.
Right. So your
Right.
inner critic is using your amygdala for the purpose of keeping you off
Prisoner.
balance
Right. Oh, right.
right. They're not the same thing. It's like I
Agreed.
from
Agreed. Good distinction.
like right. And so at this point when there's no actual danger, but it wants to stay alive. It's become an entity unto itself, which is not essentially real. It's not, but
Right.
it feels very real, because if a danger is not really, if there's no tiger chasing you and you're in that hyper vigilant state all the time, the danger isn't there. So something
Right.
is using you to keep you in this ridiculous hyper vigilant state. And that is not the health, like a healthy, if you see your child walking into the street and your healthy amygdala makes you grab that kid in front, and pull that kid back, that's the
Entirely
proper
healthy.
use of it.
Entirely healthy. Yeah.
Entirely healthy. But I'm saying, like, think of your inner critic as the inner user. It will
Right.
use it will use your truth against you. It
Yeah.
will use lies against you. It does not have to abide by any of the same laws that love has to abide by. Like, love if you want to hurt yourself, God forbid, like even emotionally, love loves you so much that it will actually let you sort of disrespect yourself until you
It will
say
grant you the freedom
the
to
freedom, the free
travel
will.
that path and then find your way back. It's sort of
There you
like
go.
the prodigal son. Whereas, you're talking about a father
It's
who
that's
said,
a
I will give you your inheritance. I will let you run out into that world that I know to be problematic and dangerous, and I love you. Go do that because I trust that eventually you will come back and we will resolve
and
this.
you will I will always, this universe will always be there for you. It is the story of the prodigal son is the story. It's like, I
Absolutely.
mean, a little antiquated in the way that it talks about, a lot some things, but the point is, we you can always go home to
Correct.
something to love. And out here in the rough and ragged edges of the inner critic, it's like, it is not your friend. People say,
Right.
like, make peace with your inner critic. It's like, no, make peace with your amygdala. Like, that you have this thing that will save you
Right. So I've
in
got a
real, true, imminent danger.
I've got a good analogy for this because it's like and this comes from a few years ago, a certain number of years ago, I was in therapy and a therapist, we were talking about this, and I like, you know, she was talking about there are systems in your body that are like soldiers. And it's like, this is a really good analogy, I thought, because it's like the idea is like you have soldiers that are there, like they have taken an oath to protect you. They will
Mhm.
protect you. Honor them. If
Yeah,
don't dishonor them, they would not like that. Honor them. And then there's like, okay, there's soldiers that are at the ready to help you, to protect. And then there's now, cut to 20 years later, there's a lot of old fat generals who are sitting around who are happy to be living off the fat of the land.
that's what I'm saying.
And that's what you're
And they're
saying.
living
So
off
they're
of
like, oh,
your
we can't get rid
happiness.
of that. What's that?
They're living your happiness is their demise.
Right. That's it. It's like, and you think to yourself, like, wow, how do we clean? It's like you're talking about like systemic corruption, where it's like, boy, wouldn't it be great if we could clean house and get rid of these old fat parasites that are sucking the life out of our community? That's a really
Right. There's
good way of
also there's
right.
a but the way to do that in all in all situations is where we get it so wrong sometimes, is we think we're going to go into battle against those
No,
generals.
right.
We
No.
need to starve them.
That's
We need
what
to
they
ice them.
do. That's what
Right.
they do. Right. Is
You can't, like, the old saying is, like, you can't fight the problem at the level of the problem.
right.
It's like, if they're these, you know, emotional,
Right.
parasites, then what
Right.
we need to do is we need to, like, they're
Right.
they're talking,
Bring
it's
in
like,
the light. Bring in the light.
bring it, right. They're
Right.
sitting there, eating popcorn while we go crazy, watching us go nuts, because
Right.
our our instability is their sustenance.
Right.
in our emotional, like this is
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right. The more that the more that you are kept off balance, the more it's not obvious that these parasites are filling up like they're taking the resources from you. And it's just like parasites. It's like little organisms, like, separate organisms that don't have your best interest in heart, but are living off of you psychologically.
and isn't that very similar to the way of the world? Like this is such you know, we there are really really good people that say I'm going to go out and fight that battle so that people can be safe in the world, and it's like the fight is the problem. If we ignore instead of fighting a problem, creating a solution,
Correct.
set the creation, go to creation. How do I create a solution? The creation of a solution abolishes the problem.
Right.
If you fight the problem, you're joining the problem team. You're joining team fear.
Without
Team
even
love over
without
here,
even knowing it.
team fear
Right.
without even knowing it. And also with a righteous heart.
Right.
You've you've got right on your side, and you're
Right.
handing over that righteousness to the very thing that disrespects all things that are righteous.
Right.
And that's why, like, there's no such thing. It's an oxymoron to say a righteous battle.
Yeah.
The battle itself, the moment you get into battle, you've lost,
You've lost.
because
Right.
there's casualties on both sides. When
Right.
you say, how do we walk away from this battle whole and healthy? How do we lead with love and with, I know these are all idealistic things, but change happens from being idealistic and finding real ways to evolve into those idealistic ideas. Before, many things that we had that we do naturally, they have antibiotics now. If you're ill, wasn't it Henry VIII who had the wound in his leg that
Yeah, that
basically
like
rotted
never
his,
basically rotted for like
never healed. Right,
5 years
right,
and never healed. Right. Yeah.
right. And I think he died from a version of that or
Oh,
something
eventually. Yeah.
eventually. But the point is that there was a time when it was like, you know, where somebody said, I'm going to solve that problem, not going to fight that problem. Like, oh, it's so sad that people have to, chop the leg off or whatever. Like, I'm not going to get into, like, being disgusted about the problem. We're going to create antibiotics, which took a
Solve the
while.
problem.
People and
Right.
people, anytime something new comes into our orbit, there were people that were put in jail for trying to develop certain medicines. I mean, like,
Right. Or
Galileo
the
spent
I
the
like
last
you
10
had
years of
mentioned,
his life.
I think you mentioned in one the doctor who dared to say that more women are dying in childbirth in hospitals than out of hospitals. And it has something to do with the fact that doctors are, they're spending their days cutting up corpses and then without washing their hands going to deliver babies.
Right. He
And
he
then
was, well,
and then he was, practically, either, like ridiculed to the point of being like pushed out of the profession by doctors who said, "This is ridiculous. What are you? You're not a man of science. You believe in, like,
you
and
believe in these little things you
these
can't
little
see
things
called
that are that
germs.
right, that right, germs,
Right.
right,
You believe in some, they chastise him because he said, like, you believe in something that's invisible, so
right,
you must be crazy. And
right."
what he said was, you know, our hospital is the highest mortality rate in the world. And he
Compared to
went in
just
search of,
being at
he
home and having your sister help deliver your baby or your mother.
Right. Well, he went to other hospitals and he noticed that the only difference he could see was that people were washing their hands in between surgeries.
Right,
And so, like, when we look at now and say, oh, it seems so silly that, like, that a pilot needs to have somebody sign off on a checklist. Like
Right.
who's going to forget to, do whatever, people were forgetting.
Right.
So these new, instead of saying, what's wrong with pilots, let's
Or
fight.
the medical vest. I mean, it was like I think that
Oh,
in one case
yes,
there was like they had the nurses who were counting medication started just wearing a vest. And the vest was basically something to say to people around me like, I'm thinking about counting medication. Don't bother me with trivial questions
because
because
doctors would come up to nurses
and
and
say like,
say, and the
nurse, do
nurse would
this,
say,
nurse, do that. Right.
yeah. So
And
there's
they were getting distracted and miscounting pills, and then people were getting sick or dying.
people, yes, medical, so they,
Right.
they felt silly putting these little plastic vests on counting medication. A doctor had to respect, they cannot ask that nurse a question while she's counting meds or, filling vials for, intravenous medication, whatever.
Right.
And like mortality rates went to
Down. Right. Demonstrably down. Right. Seems like a
right.
ridiculous thing, but it worked.
Solution, not, bad nurse, bad nurse, bad nurse. It's solution, solution,
Or
solution.
even bad doctor, like, why are you bothering
Of
me?
course,
A solution that handles
solution
problems.
oriented. And
Right.
one of our good friends invented the word be a solutionary.
Yes.
Got to give shout out to Michael on that one,
Yes, for sure.
to become a solutionary, you know, looking for solutions is not the same thing as fighting a problem.
Correct.
Change the language. What are you, people want to, they've proven time and time again that the war on anything, the war on drugs
The
created
war on
more
drugs, the
drug
war on
use.
poverty, the war on right, the war on cancer, the war right, right,
Right. And I mean, I think it was amazing that like they, one of the books that we both read, I'm not sure if it was a Malcolm Gladwell or another one, but was, Nancy Reagan's war on drugs
right,
created more drug addicts. And the reasoning was so that because what happened was there was very little drug use on campuses. And so she put up all these signs, you know,
just say no.
you know, just say no, just the just say no thing. And what it did was created in a culture on campus of most people said, well, I don't know anybody who's having a problem with drugs. Most people were just drinking a little
Pot.
underage and smoking a little pot. You mean it's the war on drugs was like, you mean my friends are doing drugs and they're not, I don't have any friends who are having problems. So I guess drugs aren't bad. That's what it created.
Range.
Like
Yes.
associating drugs and kids made kids start doing drugs because when you are fighting something, you're advertising it.
Correct. Correct.
And so if like there, it was not the solution. It was
Correct.
when you fight something, you join team fear.
Right.
When you are looking for solutions, you join team love. Being, I love Michael's word. We're gonna credit you, but we're gonna keep using it. Being a solutionary,
Yes.
which I think means something like being a solution and revolution.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Revolutionary
yeah. Yeah.
solutionist.
Yeah. 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 Put the two words together. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is revolutionary to become solution oriented. It's unique, it's new. Like,
Right.
what are
But
we
not oriented towards like we have a problem versus like
we
let's
need a
get a
solution.
solution. Right.
Right.
It's funny.
That's
I'm thinking there was I can't remember, but I know that it was in the show. It was in the show All in the Family, and I remember at the end of one of an episode where like Archie was, and if you know the show, hopefully you do. Whatever. Some people do and some people don't. Go see an episode of it. But All in the Family, Archie was railing against something as he always did, and finally Edith, his wife, who was sensible and decent on virtually every
yes.
level, came up with a very simple solution. And at the end of the show, Archie goes to her, "You mean nobody's got to suffer?" And she's like, "No, Archie, nobody has to suffer." It's like, I don't think this is the right way of going about, whatever. He's like, he can't get that nobody gets punished and everybody wins. The idea,
Right.
it's
Right.
perfect.
And well, because it's not represented, this podcast is, we're not talking about things that people aren't talking about every day. We're just trying to implement a new listening. And that's a phrase that going to use over and over again. We need a new listening.
Right.
We, you know, it seems absurd when you think about fighting something because we're so used to it. It's such a comfort zone. Like, I got to keep fighting. I got to grind. I got to keep
Yeah.
doing the grind. Like I'm, no pain, no gain. Tough love. I mean, the biggest oxymoron in the world. Tough love has no toughness about it. Love,
Right.
easy love.
Right.
The loving is easy. Some of these
Right.
songs that are like, think of the Commodores or whatever.
Loving
Like
you more,
something
loving you is
about
easy because you're beautiful, right?
right.
Too many
You
ricochets.
know, right. We just associate love and kindness with weakness. There's been a saying in the past, 20 years, don't, confuse my kindness for weakness. But
Right.
we do.
Kindness.
We
Right.
do. We
Exactly.
do
That is the
associate
confusion. Right.
kindness with weakness.
Yeah.
Kindness and strength. Let's start putting those two things together. You know, the strength to be kind in a situation where get more information.
Right.
Like when we automatically are like, like it's like my, again, we have all of our great friends. My friend Beth always says, that's interesting.
Hmm.
Just adding that little stopgap measure into before you before you answer, come back, have a comeback, to
Right.
put a little stop thing, like when someone says something to you, that's
Right.
interesting,
That's
let
an
me think
interesting
about
way
that.
of looking at things. Yes. Right. Like that you're putting a pin in something before you immediately pivot to, here's what I think, or here's why you're wrong. But
Right.
right, to
Let
stop.
me think about that. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
let's
That's an
acknowledge
interesting thought.
you there. Right.
It would there's that would do a lot of situations very well. To That's interesting. and
There's a
and
great I was thinking like I think I've said maybe on once or twice. I'm not sure if I've said it here, but like the two greatest minds of the 20th century are Carl Rogers and Mr. Rogers. Um,
oh,
well,
sure.
both I think like both in, like
They
um,
both had a similar demeanor
they both
too.
had a similar demeanor. Absolutely, they did. They both had a very quiet, very American, and they both had religious backgrounds. Like it was sort of middle America, like the nice Midwestern vibe and everything. They're both, but Carl Rogers, one of the things that it's like, it feels to me like an experiment that's never been tried. But he said, if you want to have a political argument or a religious argument, like an argument where you have two people who have distinctly different positions and that they very well might get into a fight. The thing that both people should agree to do is I speak, and then the other person says, what I heard you say was this, and this. Am I correct in that? And you're not allowed to add something to the conversation until you have verified what you've heard that person say, and then
Yeah.
having that person, yeah, that is what I said, that is what I believe. Oh, okay, if you said that, then now I say this, and then the other person has to speak back to you and verify that they heard correctly, because so much of argument comes from, you said this, no, I never said that, yes you did, and two people escalating and elevating not elevating, but escalating. There's a difference between elevating and escalating, right? A
Yeah.
conversation.
No. And the thing is, like, that has been a very that's been used a number of times in really good therapy.
Yeah.
When people are,
Husband and wife
you
who are
know,
disagreeing, and it's like, I just want you to do this. Would you do that for me? It's like, I hear you saying that you want me to do X, Y, and Z. Is that what I'm hearing? Yes. Okay, but how? And right, it's that two
it
people
it
actually hear
it's
each other.
slowing things down,
Correct.
because there are times in life where you can't slow things down. You have to act, and that's what developing our inner guidance is for,
Right.
and our, you know, just sometimes you have to act. And I'm going to go over really quickly again. I mean, probably every time, like, you know, the the way of making great decisions. Does something feel slightly better, slightly worse, or I don't know? Like when you're presented with a decision, and the reason I'm bringing it up now is because the that stopgap measure, that when in doubt, when the answer is I don't know, that pause, that slowing down of saying, you know, hmm, what you're
Give
saying,
yourself permission to just be here and not act. To
right? That's
wait for more
interesting.
information.
Or let me, what you said, like, is this what you said? That, again, like when we're making important or not so important decisions, does something feel slightly better, slightly worse? Those subtleties of life, the splitting hairs. Yeah, the splitting hairs, like slightly better, slightly worse, or I don't know. The idea that we can take a pause on things, we can slow things down, we can we can repeat back what someone said. All of these things is about what we're gonna probably start wrapping this up now for today. And but just to bring it full circle, we're talking about the idea of what is the foundation for at least my coaching and some of the things that we both believe in. How do we change language and phrases we land on? How do we create self-regulation, slowing things down? How do we make great decisions? Have things ahead of time that we know how to do. What are the why have foundational, why create a belief system in the first place? Like, you can't lose anything that's yours, you can't have anything that's not. We're going to go on with this conversation. I think we should, I know that you are in Thailand. Are you in?
I'm in Thailand, correct. And it's 10 o'clock at
Okay.
night, right?
Okay, so it's getting late for you. So we're gonna wrap it up, but this is a continuous. Give me the
Let's
word.
see.
You're the
Continual
word.
is it happens again and again, and continuous is it constantly happens. So, but it's both, isn't it?
Oh,
It's
so it's
continuous,
a con-
right?
continuous conversation that we're
Ongoing,
gonna ongoing and beyond. We hope the name of the podcast is Beyond, because we hope it's beyond things you've thought about before. We're trying to go beyond. So
right? And
thank
we
you,
do
Mark,
invite
for
people, right? We want to say, like, we really, really invite you to throw questions and comments and even absolute disagreements or wonderful agreements, anything into the comments so that we could get a sense of where you all are at and oh, like, do you mean this or do you mean that? Anything would really.
yeah, and I'm gonna do the like and subscribe thing. We want, obviously, we want to engage this conversation with more and more people. So if you like us, like and subscribe, and we're gonna try and build this to something where more people are talking. In the long run, we hope to have people as guests. In the meantime, we're doing what we're doing from across the planet, right? But
Right.
you're about as far away before you start
Yeah,
coming
11
back,
hour
right?
difference, so pretty good. Pretty big, right?
Okay, so thank you guys for coming today. We really appreciate it. And Mark, I will see you next week on Beyond.
That's right. We'll see you there, Tammy. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.
Bye.